The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
What time is it?
I knew you'd come.
Delete! 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 Delete!
Bring Freddy Krueger's world, Elm Street. We want to see Bray Wyatt's version of the Boiler Room.
My name is Dario Cueto. My relationship with the wrestlers is very special.
And he's hanging out with Masquerita Sagrada in what looks like his basement. And then his mom shows up with bagel bites. It's glorious.
Oh, that's awesome.
We are scientifically proven to be the best tag team, and not just in NXT, not just in the WWE, but in the entire universe.
Alexa, the contract is signed, but we just saw Becky Lynch go straight through a table. Is this a preview of what's to come this Sunday at TLC?
Well, aren't you a little misperceptive? Of course it's what's going to happen at TLC. I'll put Becky through 1 table, 2 tables, 100 tables. I don't care. I'm taking that title. And she even took a cheap shot at me. So now I'm just proving a point. I'll take her title, humiliate her, and show her that she does not mess with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, wrestling to the mat.
And your hosts, Gary Vaughn, Sean Garmer, and Paul Leeser.
Welcome, everybody, to Wrestling to the Max, episode 223, part 2, and we are back with another amazing episode. Not only are we going to get into TLC, which is happening this Sunday night, we're going to get into a preview of that and get into all our thoughts and processes and everything about it with our predictions on that, but we are also going to be talking about NXT, Lucha Underground, and TNA Impact Wrestling, along with some Tag League talk. Plus, quick hits like always, some interesting news coming out of the world of wrestling. So we've got a compact show, lots of great information for you guys, so you want to stick around for all of it. And don't forget, at the end, we are going to crown a Superstar of the Week and a Superstar of the Month and a Match of the Month. So we've got a full show for sure, guys. I'm your host, Gary Vaughn. Of course, with me is Mr. Sean Garmer.
What's up, everybody?
And Mr. Paul Leeser.
Heyo.
Oh boy, man, we have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, and we don't want to delay too long. But I just want to say this: it is now official. This is the Christmas season, and I know both you guys, you both work in a retail world where things are going to get even crazier. You already saw Black Friday; it's going to get nuttier. But I mean, there's a lot of things to look forward to. For myself right now, guys, I have a thing called Elf on the Shelf. I just started. Technically, today was the first day. December 1st was the day we actually introduced the little, doll. But now we're actually doing all this stuff. So I've got a full month of December to plan all these different things. Me and my wife are having a competition, separating the nights amongst ourselves to see who can do the best Elf on the Shelf stuff. So I'm having a great holiday. Paul, how's yours going? I know you got a big thing coming up this next week. It's going to be kind of a special Christmas.
Yeah, I get to go to Disney World, but this next week. But the big thing for Christmas for me is I get older. That's my big tradition. I get to celebrate another orbit around the sun.
What a gift, right? Thank you that I can live another year.
Yeah.
And again, don't thank you for all the old gray white hairs that come with it. So, but that's awesome, man. I'm so happy that you're gonna get to go to Disney World. So that it's a sad thing for us because next week we're not gonna have Paul on any of the shows. But I'm glad that you're gonna at least get to go have the chance to go and hang out in Cinderella's castle and do all those things. My daughter's gonna be very jealous of you for doing.
Yeah, I've never been before, so I'm really looking forward to it, and I have no idea what to expect other than just Disney magic, so should be a good time.
Yeah, I'm happy for you, man. So take pictures, plenty of pictures. So, but Sean, man, how's everything going in your world, man?
Just been working and it's that holiday season. It's starting to slow down a little bit because, nothing really happens between now and Christmas. It's kind of just, okay, all the people that kind of come in, shop early, do layaway, that kind of thing. Then at the end, you kind of get the rush people everybody that waits late. Kind of in the middle, there's not a whole lot happening. So that's kind of where we are right now. And then just kind of, enjoying just being in this new place. And I was proud of Anaya this week. We went into a GameStop because I went to go buy Final Fantasy 15 as my birthday present to myself. And there's, now GameStop has all these, they're not just a game store, they have all these different trinkets and, plushies and all these other kind of things. The pop figures are like all over the store, all that stuff. And they had various like Pokemon plushies there. They have like a Pikachu and Charmander and all this stuff. And out of just the blue, Anaya picks Flareon of all the damn Pokemon. And I was like, wow, that's interesting, You got all the like normal favorites there, and Anaya picks this like just out of the blue one, and I was like, well, that's how you know she inherited my Pokemon love right there. So proud of her.
Hey,
she is. She's proud of it. She takes it with her in the car. She sleeps with it. It does wherever she goes, it goes. So, that's cool.
That is very awesome.
It has
I love
the baby doll.
Hey, it's at least it's something you can share a vested interest in now. You don't care much about baby dolls, but Pokemon, hey, there you go. That's awesome, man. I'm trying to equate something that my daughter would do. It'd be like if she picked up a Jason Witten action figure, I guess. That would be it. But that's awesome.
Maybe she'll pick up a football one of these days, Gary.
Yeah, I'm sure. Hey, yeah. And then a broken nose, and it'd be Marsha all over again. But that's awesome, man. No, this is cool. There's a lot of great stuff, and everybody's going to get to hear all our crazy, boring, or exciting stories about Christmas this month. So I just wanted to ask that question because, there's a lot of stuff going on in our worlds, and a lot of us have some unique things going on. So they'll have to follow along with those stories. But, we got to start this podcast out right because we got to talk TLC. I will be actually attending TLC because of a good friend of mine, Jonathan Allen. Once again, thank you, buddy, for just getting me a ticket and inviting me. So it's really cool. Thank you once again. And before we do play that beautiful music of TLC, I wanted to let everybody know if you want to find more of this podcast and some other great shows and some other great written content, you need to go to W2Mnet.com. That's the place where you can go not only read the roundtable that'll be taking place for TLC, but lots of other wrestling content, some reviews, and some other and really cool articles. Plus, there'll also be a video game section there that you may want to check out if you're a big gamer. Lots of cool reviews. Hey, it's a good way to go find out what games will be awesome to buy for maybe yourself or someone else for Christmas, and also some other great things with the video game section, as well as we do have a football section there for fantasy football players. And, of course, if you'd like to see the college rankings, we have our own, guys. We have our own college rankings right there. Plus, don't forget, if you want to go subscribe to the W2M Network, go do it because you get this show and all the other shows we do in your docket as soon as you want to find them there. So just go do it, guys. All right, well, that's enough plugging. Let's go ahead and talk TLC. All right, guys. Well, let's start this thing off. We got to talk about a special tag match that'll be taking place at this TLC. And we all know Heath Slater and Rhino have been enjoying being the tag champs. But the question is will they still be tag champs after they face the Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton? That's the big question, Paul. How do you feel about this?
Boy, I still really enjoy Rhino and Slater as tag champs, but I think putting those belts on Orton and Wyatt and having that play into the story could add a real a real nice wrinkle to that. Plus, you still got Luke Harper keeping all that interesting in his seeming very large amount of distrust he has for Randy Orton. How about speaking correctly, Paul? Jesus. And so I'm going to go with the Wyatt family. Take the belts.
That's where I was going as well, was the Wyatt family. I think there is a stat going around now that it's been 2 months, I think, since Slater and Rhino have actually done anything with as far as a 2-on-2 tag. They were in the 6-man tag, I think, with Ziggler and somebody, and that's about it. And there's a rumor going around that they are trying to cool them down because they shouldn't be as popular as they are because they want American Alpha to be popular. So that is their way of kind of keeping them off the radar. And then, like you noticed when they had that that match, the kind of previous Survivor Series, they were the ones at ringside and everything else. So I'd imagine that WWE just kind of wants to complete that and just end this here for Slater and Rhino, continue on the story with the Wyatts, and have them be your champions so that American Alpha can eventually just prevail over them at some point.
That's a great point, and it's the fact that, it's so hard not to love those two guys, Heath Slater and Rhino, just because of the interactions, the comedy that comes with them.
Gary, how could you not?
Yeah. Come on now. He's got a double wide he's got to pay for. He's got an above-ground pool. I mean, he's living the life of luxury.
Very true, and those pizza bites don't come free. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there you go. Well, I'm going to go with the Wyatt family, too. I think you guys are dead on with that. You guys already kind of explained why, so we can move on. Let's talk Kalisto and Baron Corbin, as if we do care a lot about this. This is going to be a chairs match, and this one will be fun, Sean, but I don't know how fun, because I'm worried. Any match with Baron Corbin, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it.
Baron Corbin, let me tell you. You know what? I think he's getting better. And I think only time's going to tell with this guy as far as can he get so much better that you're actually interested in what he does. I think he's been a good heel. Just they got to do a little bit more with him, do something with him. And I think winning a match like this where he looks intimidating and he sets a tone would be good for him. I mean, we did have an article earlier this week on W2Mnet.com that you can read. Where, one of our writers talks about what if you had a John Cena versus Baron Corbin match? Well, you got to do something to get way to that point, and maybe you started here with him beating Kalisto.
Maybe you do. I don't know what they want to do with Kalisto anymore, and it feels safe going with Baron Corbin to win this. I think Kalisto makes this match exciting. I think I'm gonna have to agree. Corbin probably wins here.
I hate this match because I think there'll be some fun spots. Trust me, I could totally see in Kalisto using the chair, to jump and to do all sorts of crazy moves, and I think it's going to give him an advantage. Maybe Baron Corbin does win here. I think that's probably the smart call. But I'm going to go ahead and say Kalisto. I think they need Kalisto to look good sometime. And in this whole thing, he's really not looked all that great. So I'm going to go with Kalisto at this time, even though it's just a gut feeling, not really a smart decision. Let's talk about a feud that has kind of heated up a little, and it really got serious on SmackDown Live. And that is Nikki Bella facing off against Carmella in a no disqualification match. So this one, anything can take place here, Paul.
You're so right. You're so right. And I'm with you. This got interesting to me on SmackDown. It's been interesting since they sort of let Carmella change the way the feud goes and sort of attack Nikki Bella's relationship with John Cena, which plays into all the Total Diva stuff they have going on, which I'm sure that's where some of this at least is coming from. But I think Nikki wins here, but it's going to be interesting to see how well Carmella works in this match and if this it hides or de-accentuates her massive negatives that she brings to the ring with her as far as skill goes right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll certainly help because they're not trying to have an actual match. Even though I think the last time these two had like a match on SmackDown, it wasn't too bad. I think this should really kind of put given this feud a nice little point of emphasis. I don't know if it's going to end here, but when you usually do some kind of match like this, it's so that it can end. I would think that Nikki kind of gets her just final revenge on Carmella here and wins.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Nikki Bella does, finally pull this off and make Carmella suffer for all the bad, tasteful things that she said and, the things that she's done. So that makes a lot of sense to me, and maybe we can see these two go in different directions as well. Let's talk about Dolph Ziggler facing off against The Miz for the Intercontinental Championship match, and this is going to be actually a ladder match. How do you feel about that, Sean? What do you think is going to happen here?
I'm fine with the ladder match. I mean, they've been fighting over this title. So many pay-per-views we've seen it. That, Dolph even put his career on the line. That's how he won the title. And now you finally have this ultimate, okay, whoever grabs the title at the end, you're champion. There's nothing else here. There's no rematches, nothing. I like that they put that stipulation in there too. It seems like there's going to be no rematches, nothing like that. This is it. Whoever wins, you're the champion. We move on. I'm good with that. And I think, The Miz is so good with that title. This is a hard one because, who knows where they're going with Dolph. He's so unpredictable as far as what WWE really wants to do with him. They don't really have this like just lineup of faces to go against Miz either. So maybe Dolph retains here.
Or wins, you mean?
Or wins, sorry.
Yeah. This is tough to call for exactly the same reason Sean just said. As great as the main event scene has been around SmackDown and all the other divisions, women and tag wrestling and all that stuff, everybody else in the mid-card has sort of suffered from either not being used or having little to no direction. And when you look at everybody underneath who could possibly challenge for the IC title, like a Kalisto or a Baron Corbin or an Apollo Crews who has gone missing or a bunch of other guys, there's not really a whole lot going on there. I'm going to say The Miz retains here, and I'm sticking with the idea that Heath Slater, I think, still has enough good vibes with the crowd to be able to challenge and maybe elevate his stock a little bit more.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting prediction. You kind of talked about it a little bit on Tuesday, and Heath Slater, he will do a lot better and maybe do something that WWE's okay with compared to him being in the tag division. You kind of mentioned that earlier, Sean, about how they wanted really American Alpha to be the best, most popular tag team. So separating Heath Slater out of that tag team with Rhino and making him his own singles wrestler and making him popular, that could totally work. But if that's going to work, that's only going to work against The Miz. And I feel like The Miz is the guy to have the Intercontinental Championship right now because he does such a great job on the mic and he does such a great job of presenting that title as if it mattered the most in the entire world. Dolph Ziggler is great. Love Dolph Ziggler. But I really feel like right now The Miz is putting that title over the best. And so a feud between himself and Heath Slater would be a lot of fun to watch. And everybody would be behind Heath Slater or whoever else is going against him. So I got to go with The Miz here. I feel like he'll retain in this ladders match. And something else we kind of talked about on SmackDown Live kind of leading up to this show, Paul, was the fact that, we said Alexa Bliss was a great on the mic, probably the best in the women's division over both all Raw and SmackDown, even though Charlotte's great herself. But she's got a big match here, and she's going to be facing off against Becky Lynch, the women's champion, in a tables match. So this will be kind of cool.
They've done a really spectacular job of building this up. And maybe it's not as big and showy and in your face as everything they've done for Charlotte and Sasha, but I would say it's been better just because, one, you haven't had all the crazy title changes, and two, it feels like they've really done an excellent job of letting Alexa Bliss show off how good she can be on the microphone, and hopefully these two will certainly deliver a great match. I'm looking forward to this a lot. I'm going to say that that Becky retains, just because I think she's going to have a long run with it before they drop it to somebody. But this should be really, really good.
They've done a great job of making you think Alexa actually has a shot here, making her feel like an equal to Becky, even though, yes, we know Becky's the better wrestler, whatever, but Alexa has really gotten a lot of mic time to shine and has really put over that character and really made you either dislike her or really like her just for the opposite reason of you think that she's funny or she's cool or whatever. Becky plays her role really well, and she, even epitomized in that contract signing too. So I think I could totally agree with Paul. I mean, you got to have you got to have a way to establish this belt differently than the way you're establishing it on Raw. On Raw, you're establishing it with title changes between the two lead women. On SmackDown, you kind of need to establish it differently. Have a champion that's going to hold it, and then you have someone built up to eventually take that belt from Becky. Whether it's Nikki to further down that line and then have somebody beat Nikki, or whether it's one of the, I guess, younger or less established stars. Perhaps even I don't want to say this because it could happen, but Eva Marie's supposed to be back pretty soon. And perhaps she is going to be Becky's next challenger, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, I mean, you make some good points there, and I look at it as a situation where you've got to have someone be the clear winner here, someone who does maybe really kind of prove that they deserve that title, and I think in the end it will be Becky Lynch. I really feel that way. I think that's the best chance that they're going to have here. And so I'm going to go with that. I would think that Becky Lynch will win this, and I think it's going to be really, really interesting. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to see the table spot, though, that does end this. I think that's going to be the most fun part about it. Well, let's jump into this last match here. We're going to have AJ Styles face off against the guy that really, really wants his title back, the one that he actually lost to AJ, I believe, and that's Dean Ambrose. And we saw on SmackDown Live how, the little buddy got put out of play, so we have no idea if we're going to have James Ellsworth around because the beating that AJ Styles put on him, but that'll kind of come into play in your predictions. But this is interesting. This is going to be a TLC match, and anything can happen in this one as well, Sean.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we have had Dean go against AJ numerous times. Usually when you get something like that, it kind of tends to call for a title change. But, man, AJ has been so good. I don't think that Dean really needs the title, per se, to establish himself here. I think you can keep it on AJ and you'll be fine. I've also seen a lot of people compare where you could maybe have a... I just don't know what to do because you don't have a lot of top names out there to battle AJ. I mean, you've had to have James Ellsworth in the title picture because, John Cena's gone. You shouldn't be having a guy like Kane in the title picture at this point. Bray and Randy are kind of in their own thing. So, I mean, who's left to challenge AJ at this point other than Dean, unless you're just pulling someone out of thin air? And I don't know. So I guess you'd have to keep on with Dean, but there is that possibility if you wanted to, make Dean and James Ellsworth a bigger thing and go with the whole, maybe you try to do a Rock and Sock connection number 2 with those guys. I mean, they definitely have the comedy team to get that done if they want to, but then the problem is, who do you have facing AJ in the meantime?
I don't know. I wish I had a better answer because I don't. Because seemingly after the TLC, if everything goes the way we're saying, then maybe Dolph somehow gets slingshotted back to challenging for the WWE title somehow with AJ. All I know is I'm not ready for AJ's title reign to be over. I'm going to say he wins even though Dean is my boy. maybe you just have them change feuds where you have Dolph go with AJ, you have Dean go for The Miz, and see what happens. But
maybe nobody feuds with him though, and somebody wins on the SmackDown side for the Rumble, and that's how they go on from that. Because it's like Kevin Owens has Roman, and Kevin Owens has other guys. It's obvious, and then we don't know when Finn's going to be able to be back. I think they said he might be back before Mania now. So the guy that's in question is that whole, we don't know what's going on SmackDown. Could they bring up somebody and put him on SmackDown and to be the next set for AJ, or could they have somebody switch sides after could they go back into that old rule of whoever wins the Rumble, you get to pick which title you want to go after, and that's how they go with that. It's whoever wins ends up facing AJ instead.
God, wouldn't it be great if Cesaro won and decided to move to SmackDown? Like, how great would that be? Jesus.
Yes. I would go with that.
I mean, Samoa Joe, I think, is another option to fill that role, too, because I don't know if they want him in NXT anymore or not, or if he needs to be in NXT anymore or not with all the talent they've been signing recently. But I honestly, I don't know where you go from here. I just know that you should move forward with AJ as your champion.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think AJ needs to be the guy. And I think that, as much as Dean Ambrose is a fun character and as, he's, at times crazy, funny, all that, right now, I just feel like you've got too much going and too much of a good thing going, I should say, with AJ as your champion. Not only does the crowd like him, even though he is, the bad guy, but you've got a lot of, momentum going with that championship with him holding it. So I really feel like it's got to continue. I have no idea if James Ellsworth shows up or not, but I think at the end of the day, it's a win if you have AJ. It's not a loss if Dean Ambrose wins, but it's, to me, not as exciting. And I don't know if I'm really ready for another Dean Ambrose title run right now. Maybe later. Not right now. So. Well, I guess that wraps up TLC for us, guys. We, had a lot of cool matches to talk about. And, of course, we are hoping to have a show Sunday night, Wrestling Unwrapped to the Max. That's the show that will be taking place on Sunday night following TLC. And we'll be giving you all the wrap-up on the entire show, give you all the, all of the things that happened, and, if we were right about our predictions. And, so there you go with that. Well, now we are going to move on and do some quick hits. And don't forget, we're also going to do some more reviews. I know last week we missed the actual part 2 of episode 222. So we'll jump into a few things, highlights from last week, and then jump into this week. But before we do that, we do need to talk wrestling news. So quick hits is now.
Let me find there it goes.
It's time for wrestling news. Quick hits.
All
right, guys. All right, here we are. And let's talk about the fact that we have some interesting stuff going on with the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. They've added a few names to that. Daniel Bryan, Mean Gene Okerlund, who I love from my fandom of WCW, Sting, and of course James McLaughlin. So those are some names added to the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. How do you feel about those names? And I don't know how much you guys follow the Wrestling Observer, but I mean, to me, it's been around for a while and holds some credibility.
I'm not overly familiar with everybody in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. But it's still really cool. I think it's still actually newsworthy. It's still sort of like baseball, right? We have writers and guys who are around the business give the votes, right? It's not just people, if I remember correctly.
It's former wrestlers, active wrestlers,
Sean?
Reporters,
mm-hmm.
and other people. So yeah, like Paul said, there's guys around the business, and there's even workers that are in the business right now voting too.
Yeah, so it's kind of like baseball, which is really cool. Daniel Bryan, of course, one of the best technical wrestlers of our generation, maybe ever in pro wrestling, certainly top 5. Mean Gene, the most identifiable, iconic interviewer in pro wrestling history probably ever. And of course, Sting, an absolute icon too. So 3 great guys. Colonel James McLaughlin is not ringing a bell for me. So maybe somebody from way back that I'm just not familiar with.
That's a guy from way back. Like, he was the first ever wrestling champion. I mean, you're talking about way back there. Like, none of us are gonna know who the hell that is. But I mean, honestly, I'm sure that Mr. Dave is grinning and bearing the fact that Sting is in there, because for a long time he has talked about how he didn't think that Sting deserved to be in there. He didn't think he was a draw long enough, that when he was a draw it was Hogan, not him, and if it was not him it was Flair and whatever. So the people actually voted him in, which Dave doesn't have any really thing to do with this. He just it's his observer that kind of hosts the thing. He makes the rules, obviously, but he's not voting. It's the other people that vote, but he kind of obviously likes to have some kind of say on who he feels, should be in or whatever. Obviously Brian is a no-brainer. I think, obviously, maybe if he was still wrestling, he wouldn't be in right now. But that's not saying anything, because last year Nakamura got in. And, he's obviously still wrestling. So, Mean Gene obviously probably should have been a long time ago, but like he says, and Okerlund obviously, he fits this bill to a T of being the best in your field when it comes to non-wrestlers. And Mean Gene, there's still nobody that really beats him as far as your backstage interviewer and your sometimes commentator and that kind of thing. He is one of a kind, and still they're looking for his replacement, which they may never find, honestly. So I got no problem with people that are in. It's interesting the way that, I mean, just for people who have never, who don't subscribe to the Observer or whatever, and they go, well, what's this? Why is there Hall of Fame? Like Paul said, it's very much built around like the whole baseball analogy of you're only trying to get in certain guys. You're not trying to have it like WWE where it's up to Vince and whatever Vince says, right? You're trying to actually have some kind of criteria to go with this, and they use like drawing power, how great you are in the ring, obviously, how big of an influence you were on the business, and then how long you've been around, and the mixture of that is what helps you get in. And obviously also they have that same criteria as baseball, where if you've been around long enough on the ballot, you can get taken off and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes that gets somebody in. I don't want to go through this whole list. There's a huge list of people. It's way too long. Yeah. But, it's just really interesting how this goes about, and it's cool that they, there's only a select few people that get to vote for this, that are like writers and stuff like that. So, it's a really interesting how this goes about, how he does this every year, and I think this is a cool thing that they have, and hopefully, it can continue to be a prestigious honor that people get.
Oh, for sure. And, like I said, it's the Wrestling Observer, and, it depends on, if people enjoy the Wrestling Observer or if you pay attention to it. But at the end of the day, these things are neat. They're just kind of fun to follow. And, I kind of appreciate the way they do it. Like Sean said, I mean, it's more of a, professional baseball type thing. And, the system is the ballot system. So, it's good in a way. And I think in, some sense, it's not, if you are taking people off the ballot that really should be in, that just get ignored. So, but, let's talk about something else that's kind of interesting here, guys. Let's talk about, what's going on in MMA, and they have actually decided to create a union for MMA fighters. And for years and years and years, we've often discussed the fact that it wouldn't happen in wrestling. And I don't know if it could or would ever happen, but that makes you really question, since, MMA is doing it. Do you think that could ever be a case, Sean, where we're going to actually have a union for wrestling?
Well, I should point out that this is not everybody, right? This is people that are not contracted to UFC right now. they're not really like, you're not seeing Conor McGregor in this thing. So it's obviously going to have to be a slow process of would UFC do something if some of its guys or women decide to be in this? Would they try to find a way to get them out of their contract, or how would that affect their contract? That kind of thing. That's the thing that affects wrestling the most, is there's no way WWE would allow their guys to unionize. So it would take people outside of WWE to all decide, hey, we're going to do this, and we're going to get everybody we can, and then try to force everybody's hand. That's a tough thing to do when, if you decide to be against a promoter, whether it's big or small, you can find yourself without a work. And, it's very much, a lot of people talk about the NFL being this, old buddy system of coaches and all that stuff. Coach gets fired, he gets hired somewhere else doing some other thing, for another team. Well, promoters can be that same way. One promoter, you piss off one promoter, you could wind yourself up, or wind up where you piss off all the promoters. So that's something that, I don't know, the wrestling world would have to evolve out of its state that it's in. And even though it's evolving, I don't know that it'll evolve like that anytime soon. I mean, we might be talking, I still think like 10, maybe 20 years. Somebody would have to challenge that independent contractor thing and win. And then you could see this happen. But I think as long as that independent contractor thing is around, especially while Vince is around, that's not changing. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think Vince McMahon is one of those component, just the owners for sure of a company. He's the owner of one of the biggest companies in the entire world, but he does not like that. He would not even come close to liking it. From what I've heard, I mean, he don't even like agents. He thinks wrestlers should come and make their own deals and not have any agents come into play when they discuss negotiations with contracts. So I am assuming that even more with a union, it would be more of a hard-headed decision for him not to work with them. And of course, let that happen. He'd probably blackball plenty of other wrestlers just to keep that thing down. But it's an interesting conversation, and it's one that'll keep coming up. I mean, this will probably be a question we'll be talking about next year, the year after, until it actually happens, until I actually have something where, they actually are coming close. It is kind of a moot conversation, I guess. Let's talk about something else that's kind of interesting, because, we do cover New Japan, and we do like to talk about some different things going on. There will be a match at Korakuen Hall on December 2nd. And that match will be with Kojima facing off against Suzuki. And this is a loser leaves the promotion match, which, in fact, this will be the highest stakes match on the card. And this was going to be kind of cool to get into. What do you guys think about that? That's kind of a big match. What do you think, Sean?
I think Paul is back now. I don't know.
Ah, Paul's back. Thank goodness.
Yeah, my internet crapped the bed for some reason.
Oh, boy.
But, so actually this show is probably taking place right now while we're talking. But, so it's Nakajima, who was in the G1 and is the current champion right now, against Minoru Suzuki, who's obviously leader of Suzuki Gun, been in New Japan for many years before this. I think we still don't have a match for Shibata at Wrestle Kingdom. This whole thing about Shibata and respect has been a big thing with the New Japan dads this year. I know he won the Never title back or whatever, but what a way to have a huge Never title match at Wrestle Kingdom than to have him defended against Minoru Suzuki. I think it would be great. It would be one of those. It could certainly fill that third spot in the triple main event, whatever thing that they did last year with no problems, and people would totally be into it. Nakajima is the young upstart. Yes, he has history with New Japan recently, but I don't think you give him the title for him to just lead the promotion all of a sudden. Now, if we were talking about Suzuki and Marufuji again, now that would be a total toss-up, but I think we kind of know Suzuki should be the one leaving here. Don't know if that means the all Suzuki gun will follow with him, but Minoru going, I don't think is too big of a deal.
No, I mean, I think this more plays into the idea of the recent company who purchased Noah and who's trying to sort of move on and get Noah going in its own direction without the specter of New Japan hanging over it and sort of keeping it going with an infusion of its own talent as well as all the stuff that Noah has going on. And I think this is just sort of giving you a big show to show that that Noah's moving in that direction and that Suzuki is indeed probably going to be on his way out. I got to remember, I need to watch that match too. It's probably going to be awesome. But I'm all down for Suzuki and Shibata. The rumored opponent for Shibata at the Dome so far has been Cody Rhodes, which I know there's a lot of people who aren't a huge favor of that. Seeing as Shibata, I mean, I originally thought this was going to be a final battle, but Shibata is working Tag League that night, and there's no way it could happen. So, but yeah, I think, I mean, Suzuki back in New Japan, it would be great. I have absolutely zero problems with that, so.
Should
Awesome.
just remind people that we obviously know that ROH Final Battle takes place later tonight, and that we did the preview on Part 1. So if you didn't check out Part 1, you should definitely listen to that for our thoughts on ROH Final Battle.
Definitely. And we'll be also, reviewing that on Monday's show. So if you do want to hear us cover that, that will be on Part 1 of episode 224. Let's talk Ring of Honor real quick before we move out of quick hits. Let's talk about the fact that they do have some joint shows with New Japan. Those will be taking place at Korakuen Hall on February 26th and February 27th. And this will be Honor Rising. So this is really cool, Paul. I think I'll be really looking forward to seeing this. I mean, we've already seen these two promotions work together, but I just think Honor Rising is going to be a lot of fun and it should have some great build once we get to that.
It's the same deal they did earlier this year too, back in February. So that's pretty neat. I enjoyed the last set of shows. Obviously, we had the big title change with Ishii winning the ROH TV title off of Roderick Strong. Maybe they do something big like that again, but it's going to be a vastly different ROH roster too, with a different look and a different direction. I think going forward from this year, if all the contract talks of who's leaving ROH and who's staying at the end of this year, it could have a very significant change on the way ROH books things. So, like there's been rumors floating around everywhere today that the Young Bucks are at the top of WWE's list, and the Bucks have even gone so far as to take to Twitter and say thanks for everything ROH, New Japan, and PWG, which makes me nervous, but we'll see what happens.
Oof.
The Bucks are masters
Sean,
at playing the game, so I wouldn't.
Too true.
I wouldn't sit there and go, "Oh my God, it's happening right now," because the Young Bucks are the masters of Twitter. Those guys are on Twitter all the time. They know how wrestling Twitter works. They know that they will jump at anything, and so they're gonna play that game. They're gonna play the hype game. They're gonna play the game of how do we get the most attention for ourselves? How do we create that buzz? Because if they create a buzz on the internet, right, that they're coming, just like the New Japan guys did when they came, this could drive their price up. They could sit there and get into a bidding war, and maybe WWE says, okay, well, these guys are worth it. We might actually have to pay some top dollar for these guys. Now, Kevin Kelly is obviously gone on because he's got a higher position now in ROH. He's not just he's part of the booking committee and whatever. He has gone on to Twitter to talk about how he thinks it's flattering that WWE's going after all of their people, but he thinks it's BS. It's not happening. Kevin Kelly can keep being naive, but it is what it is. I still believe that if Jay Lethal is offered anything that's competitive, dude, go. You've done all you're going to do in ROH, and I just really don't think you're going to become something in Japan. If you have any kind of shot, NXT would be your shot at this point. So that's one guy that I think for sure is going. Anybody else, though, that's just totally up in the air. Could we see a 3-company bidding war going on for all these guys, especially now that TNA has real money that they can actually play with?
Yeah, very true. I mean, go ahead, Paul.
All I was going to say was that I wasn't confirming or denying anything the Young Bucks had said. I was just saying they make me nervous every time they take Twitter like this. So that's what they're trying to do, though.
I just don't know how I can handle. I can't. I just don't know, Sean, how I can handle a world without suck it parties.
Well, they just be doing suck it in NXT. So
well, that's a Triple H call. I think that'd be really interesting.
I mean, Triple H does
trust
work
me.
there, so.
Well, I mean, but if he does discretion, if a new version of Degeneration X was to come out, that would be so awesome. And
I mean, honestly,
something
the
I would
Young Bucks
definitely
are the only ones that do the suck it thing anymore. Like none of the other Bullet Club people do it, so it could be their thing.
It's just a perfect marriage, though. I really feel like that the Young Bucks could represent a Degeneration X and maybe start another faction. Because let's be honest, right now the way you see Gallows and Anderson going along, I think that the whole Bullet Club idea has kind of gone out the window, really. So I don't imagine they're going to match up, and join Finn Balor for anything like that. So a new Generation X would be awesome. Just my opinion. So. Well, we'll see. We'll see where everybody goes and moves around. And Ring of Honor does have a lot of decisions to make, at the end of this month because, wow, so many contracts are up, and that could really change that company. Let's move out of quick hits, though, guys. We've got a lot of stuff to do still. We are about to hop into some Lucha Underground talk.
NXT.
We're doing NXT.
I just want to point out that Matt Sydal was supposed to get out of jail in Japan, and he'll be back working in the U.S. next week.
Next week? Okay. Well,
I
want to go to Japanese jail.
Not looked favored upon over there.
Apparently not. But I want to go to Japanese jail because he kept telling everyone he was in Hawaii. So if he got confused between Hawaii and Japanese jail, it must be a vacation that I've never seen before. So
he must be on that canvas.
Note to yourself,
really
next time I'm in
hard.
Japan. What is it?
He must be on that canvas really hard.
Yeah.
That he thinks that he's in Hawaii.
Did you notice that, though? He was tweeting people out saying, hey, sorry I missed the show. I'm in Hawaii. Can't get a flight booked, blah, blah, blah. And that was his cover.
I wonder if somebody else was tweeting for him. It's like...
Maybe so.
It'd be really weird if you just let somebody have a phone in jail, but I don't know how Japanese jails work. But,
It may be a requirement in Japanese jail. You never know.
Oh, something I forgot before we move on. I'm sorry, Gary.
No, go ahead.
Something that's kind of important because it goes back to this thing that I think we might have talked about. We didn't really get too in depth in because we didn't know too much about it at that point. It was kind of something that they were going to start, but they, didn't have too much info on yet. ITV in the UK is for real coming back, bringing back that World of Sport thing, and this is a serious thing. They're not just bringing it back for one show. They want this to be an actual promotion, it looks like, to the point where they are offering talent contracts to UK wrestlers where they cannot appear on other TV shows, which means that they could not appear on WWE shows or anything like that. And so WWE is countering with trying to get UK wrestlers to sign with them so they can't show up on that World of Sports show because ITV is basically like, let's say if the BBC is sort of your CBS, your number one station, whatever. ITV is your Fox, NBC, whatever. Okay? So Sky Sports is a paid TV thing. Imagine how many more people are going to be able to watch that World of Sports show than the WWE Raw, WWE SmackDown every week or every 2 weeks or whenever they're going to do this. So WWE is obviously worried that, when it comes to the UK, they might have some serious competition here, and they want to make sure that these ITV people don't get a bunch of the great talent. But, so, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys
Yeah.
Do you guys think? Do you think we're going to start seeing some more British wrestlers over here, or do you think that they'll turn down the WWE deals because they're low?
I think it matters on whether that World of Sport thing is more than just a one-off. If it is, then there's no reason to really sign any deals or anything like that. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing more British wrestlers over here. That scene has totally taken off, and I'd hate to see WWE sort of cut its legs out under it before it got going long term. But if that's the way the cookie crumbles, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I agree. And, here's the thing, they're going to have some backing even from U.S. people like Jim Ross and a few other names, I'm sure, that, have been working with those, guys over there for the World of Sport. And that's going to help their case, and they're going to bring, definitely a lot of viewers. And so that's the thing. That's why WWE is so scared. That's why they're nervous. I hope it succeeds, though, to be honest with you. I want to see it. WWE needs competition. They really, really do. And if they, have that competition again, maybe we can actually see some growth and some even better things than we're already seeing. I think WWE is doing fine. They're moving in the right direction, but maybe they'll listen to the audience sometimes more than they do now. Maybe they'll, maybe up their game. That's what we can all hope, I believe. So we shall see. Well, guys, that is quick hits for all you guys. We are about to do some NXT. Like I said, we'll jump into NXT and we'll give you a little bit of highlights what we liked about last week, and then we'll jump into this week's episode. So let's do that. Let's talk some NXT.
Let's do that. Give me a second here.
WWE Developmental NXT.
Before we get into the NXT thing, this is WWE related, so I just wanted to bring this up here. So WWE's doing the pay-per-views. They're continuing the 2 pay-per-views a month thing. There is going to be 18 pay-per-views officially for 2017. They're taking 1 off, but they had talked about doing 16 because this is getting costly for them. But they decided to keep the number at 18, and in fact, there will be a month in between Raw and SmackDown pay-per-views as the lead-up to WrestleMania. Elimination Chamber is going to come back. That's going to be Raw only, and then Fastlane is going to be SmackDown only a month later in March. So we'll have a February pay-per-view, March pay-per-view, and then WrestleMania in April. So what do you think about Elimination Chamber coming back? Having the big number of pay-per-views again, and do you like the split of a month in between, or would you rather just have that whole month off in March, build up to WrestleMania?
It certainly makes sense to do it this way. They've always had that sort of one little road bump pay-per-view on the way in February going towards Mania, so having one each across both February and March makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with it. I think that you can still build feuds to WrestleMania and have these matches and have these cards and just get it all set together for the big pay-per-views for each brand and still have WrestleMania matter and still be important. So I think it's okay. I have no qualms about that.
Do you like the Elimination Chamber coming back?
I've always kind of enjoyed it to an extent. I think it's fun. But the only thing I worry about in an Elimination Chamber match is that's a pretty serious match for a big show like WrestleMania. And, not saying people are going to get hurt, but I think you up your chances of people getting hurt before the biggest show of the year.
For me, it always felt like such a big match to have before you're supposed to have the big match at Mania. It just seemed like an odd placement for it. I always Elimination Chamber would be perfect for Survivor Series, but they've only done it the one time, and that was its introduction, and then they sort of went off and had its own thing because it was so runaway successful. But at least it's Raw. Raw has the sort of built-in stuff to where I think they could make an Elimination Chamber match work right now, whereas SmackDown, it would be more about trying to elevate workers to that scene, which, I mean, maybe they could use equally, but I think I'd much prefer it on Raw right now.
Yeah, I guess that ends our news talk for now. So I don't necessarily have the, I don't know what you guys wanted to cover from NXT last week or anything.
You know, I was thinking about it, and really the one thing I'll point out is I think the the main event that they had was probably the most interesting thing, and they had the 6-woman tag match there.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, refresh my memory. I remember the match itself, but I don't remember everybody that was involved.
Right, so it was Ember Moon and Aaliyah and Liv Morgan taking on Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, and the new debut, was it Deanna or Denise? I'm forgetting her name now, too. The MMA theme chick, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was it was a pretty decent match. I mean, I thought it was good, and it was one that I think that it was good, but it wasn't completely a payoff. I thought that was going to be kind of a payoff match, but to me, it really didn't pay off what you needed it to do.
It's mostly because I don't think they're continuing the idea of nobody's ready for Asuka, and they're trying to build somebody up out of that. And from really, I mean, from the looks of it, it appears to be that obviously Ember Moon is going to be the next challenger from NXT to come up and face Asuka, because as we'll talk about on this one, they're sort of continuing the idea that there still isn't anybody ready for her. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that match. I thought it was good. The other main part of last week's NXT carries over directly into this week too, so there's no big diff there.
Yeah, so this week they taped it before SmackDown in Ottawa, which is weird. I wish they would have done it with on Raw, because that Ottawa crowd was pretty bad. But so you have Asuka versus Nicole Matthews. Nicole Matthews kind of got a bit here on Asuka, but she winds up winning. The reaction for Asuka though was kind of weird. She didn't really get a whole lot here. Anything?
Just they kind of sat on their hands, didn't they? I mean, that crowd really did sit on their hands. They really were not all that excited. It was kind of. I'm glad you brought up that point, because it was kind of awkward at times with this crowd. But I think that Matthews getting the chance to actually shine a little bit here is important, because I agree. Asuka is just a complete package of killing anyone that comes in front of her. But on the other hand, it's nice to see that she does have some weaknesses, and that she's not just going to go in there and squash you 1, 2, 3. It took a little time, and she got someone to get a little offense on her, which made both of them look good.
Daria Beninato was the lady's name I was trying to remember from 6-woman last week. Who was the one who took the fall in that dangerous looking eclipse, because she didn't really sell it right, but
yeah.
Asuka goes over Nicole Matthews here. I was surprised how much Nicole got. I wouldn't be shocked if Nicole is on that short list for the Women's Classic sometime next year too. And yeah, I mean, the Ottawa crowd wasn't so much into a lot of the middle stuff here. They were certainly in the main event, I thought, but Asuka continuing to run over pretty much anybody put in front of her who's not a legend, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and that's surprising, because in well, maybe not for Paul, because he doesn't like this guy, but considering Eric Young is Canadian, you have him wrestle against No Way Jose, and No Way Jose loses to Eric Young in this match. A little bit surprising, but they are trying to push Sanity along here. What did you think?
Yeah,
this was interesting.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, no, you're fine. No, I was just going to say that Sanity, this is about building them up, like Sean pointed out here, and I think that they did a fine job of it. It wasn't nothing overly crazy, but I mean, it was decent here. No Way Jose, he's got something to prove. He was going to show these guys and make them pay for what they've done to him. And, of course, his, friend, I mean, he's trying to, protect his friend, too. At the same point, what's going to happen here in the long run. I mean, there's just too many of them and only one of him. So it ends up being that big beatdown. And I think what's kind of, cool is you do have Sanity to look very dangerous here. They show that they just don't care. I think it was someone, I forget which one on commentary, made the reference towards, these people here are very reminiscent of the Wyatt family and some other, groups. So I like that point. And I'm blanking on her name, isn't it? Cross?
Nikki Cross.
I mean, once again, thank you. Nikki Cross comes in here and, causes violence on Noe Jose and, hitting him and things like that. And, so at the end of the day, that whole line that they used to draw between women, hitting men and men hitting women, it's kind of being blurred a little bit with this. But I like the fact that she's doing this. It makes her even more crazier. No fear with her. So I think it kind of well rounds this group.
I like the Sanity gimmick a lot. I'm not a big fan of who they got in charge, but EY got some promo time last week, and his voice sounded rougher than usual. So rough you could barely really understand what he was saying. But there's a nice package around it, and the only person I think I've really invested in is Nikki Cross, and that's only because I've been watching her in indies and stuff like that. But the other guys don't really impress me all that much, and that's not a knock against them. They just really haven't done enough for me yet. EY has a good match here with No Way Jose, though. Jose and Swan sort of being used to get these guys over quickly, and we'll see where they go from Sanity from here.
Yeah, so I saved the main event for last here, but they did build it up with announcing that Samoa Joe versus Nakamura and the rematch is going to take place December 3rd in Osaka, Japan. Joe then goes in and tells Mr. Regal that Nakamura is not on his level and that he's the best and nobody is close. Ty Dillinger, Perfect 10, comes in and says, Joe, I want a match with you tonight. And Joe tells him, hey, look, man, you don't want to get humiliated in your home country twice. And well, he comes in and tells Joe, I have 10 reasons why I should face you, and then he slaps him. So, of course, Samoa Joe not happy with that. You have this match. The crowd really into this as opposed to everything else. And Ty Dillinger does get the tiebreaker. He almost wins the roll-up and all that stuff, but he doesn't win, obviously. Joe wins. And he chokes him out at the end.
He sure does. I thought this was good. Ty Dillinger gets the nice standing O at the end from the crowd, too, who was still doing the 10 thing. I mean, he was getting the loudest chants all night, and Joe certainly got his fair share, too. But I just left this whole thing thinking, why on earth would you want to slap Samoa Joe? That's not something I would do at a wrestling show or at a bar or at my own house. Like, there's nowhere safe for you to do that.
I don't even think you do that in church. I mean, the guy.
No. Samoa Joe will slap you in church back.
Exactly. Or worse, he'll put your hand somewhere you don't want. But,
Jesus.
Exactly. That's who you'll be asking for once it's up there. But anyway, I mean, yeah, that's a big deal, and I love it, though. I love the gall that, we had here. And, he is the perfect 10 for a reason, right? And, he's got that confidence about him, and that's exactly what he's doing here. He's trying to prove that, hey, I've got to do something. If I'm as good as I want to be, I've got to step up to the plate. He did it. Wasn't a good idea at the end, but he did at least tried.
Poor Ty Dillinger, he's just getting beat by everybody.
I mean, that's sort of his thing right now, though, right? He's the guy with the big name who he's sort of in that Tyler Breeze role right now, where he's the guy that you put over, that elevates you to that main event scene.
It's true.
Yeah, I hope better days for him. Maybe that's where they're leading. Maybe they need him to take the ultimate fall to rise up again. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's it for NXT.
All right, guys. Well, we are going to head on over and talk some Lucha Underground next. And like I said before, we still have a big show ahead of us, so we still got to talk TNA Impact Wrestling and talk Superstar of the Week. But now we are going to head to the Temple and get in depth with it with Paul. Let's do it next.
All right, guys.
All right. So we need to touch briefly on the stuff that happened last week, because there was a lot of important stuff. Like the Rabbit Tribe debuted last week, which is Paul London leading the way in sort of like this Mad Hatter look, with Salty Door, who is this like checkered full-bodied luchador, and Mala Suerte, Bad Luck, or Ultimate Bad Luck, or something like that. Who looks. He reminds me a lot of, if anybody's out there familiar with Stigma from Jakara, he reminds me a lot of that guy. There's some weird cats, Gary.
Oh boy, this is nuts. And but can you expect anything less with Paul London? I mean, he's kind of a nutball himself.
That's so true. I can only imagine what else those guys are going to get up to. But they're certainly a fun act. They just they weren't super impressive, I think, in their debut, personally.
No, I totally agree. I expected more. I just kind of felt like it was flat. I just thought it was me, though. I thought maybe I don't understand it,
Mm-hmm. I just think they probably just need some time to breathe and grow, sort of like everything else that Lucha Underground does. Killshot, Dante Fox also have their first big match. This was super good. I'd highly recommend anybody go track this down. These guys have a great high, real fast-paced match. Killshot even Death Valley drivers Dante Fox from the second rope onto the frickin' ring apron on the outside. Is absolutely brutal. But Fox ends up going over, and this is just a great match. It's something I think feel it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those matches where you sit back and you say, wow, I mean, this is why I love Lucha Underground, because they do all these crazy things and they get away with a lot of things. So it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So the big match and the big thing that happened on last week's Lucha Underground was that Johnny Mundo, of course, had cashed in his Get to the Gods title the same night that Aztec Warfare took place, so that he could make sure he was going to get the championship. And, of course, Sexy Star ends up winning, and now he has the match with her. After Angelico's interference in Aztec Warfare, he has him barred from the arena, gets a restraining order and all this stuff. And then he has the match with Sexy Star, which isn't terrific by any means, and he wins, of course, from Amass Taya returning on crutches, who uses the crutches and on pretty much the whole thing to steal the title again from Sexy Star. Worldwide Underground come out and celebrate with him and have a big party, pretty much.
Yeah, and it is kind of funny to kind of see all this take place, because you're thinking Sexy Star having the success before, that she's going to be okay for a few weeks, but it didn't take long at all before things to get kind of screwy with her.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true. And, of course, on that episode, too, they set up this week's episode, which we're going to talk about now. Pentagon, Dark, and Black Lotus have so Black Lotus approaches Dario. She wants revenge on Pentagon Dark from breaking her arm back at Ultima Lucha Dos, which he acquiesces to and says that the entire triad will face they'll face Pentagon Dark in a gauntlet match that runs the whole episode. Of course, the rest of the Black Lotus triad are the three big stars from Stardom, Io Shirai. God, I'm already forgetting on the rest. That's not good. Io Shirai, Kairi Hojo, and I'm forgetting the third one. Maya Iwatani. And before we dive into that match, there's a lot of other stuff going on in the show that we'll just go ahead and get out of the way. Pentagon bumps into Vampiro in the back, and Vamp pretty much tells him that everybody has to pay for their sins eventually. And during the entire gauntlet match, Vampiro is very pro Pentagon getting his butt handed to him. It's almost like a sexual experience for him watching this happen. It gets a little awkward at times, but it certainly does continue the story very well. And by the end of the episode, he's in the back where Prince Puma is hanging out in a coffin from his big Grave Consequence matches with Mira Muertes that he lost. He wakes up, and Vampiro shows up in the full paint thing and tells him to come with him. There's some bad stuff happening here, Gary.
Yeah, this is, very creepy in a way, if I can say so. And that's why I love it. I'm a big fan of the horror genre, so that's why I kind of get into this kind of stuff. So, I like the fact that Vampiro is still a part of this. I thought maybe they'd kind of slide away from Vampiro with a storyline, only because, he's not per se an active wrestler. And so with him still having the feelings he has, especially with, the fact that, Pentagon Dark, basically just took him out and without any regard. I mean, adding this part in and the creep factor, I think it all works together fine.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm looking forward to see where they go from here. I think it's going to be really interesting and sort of how this all grows together because they're doing like all this. This is something Lucha Underground is very good at, and that is intertwining stories very, very well. Like they've worked in Black Lotus and all this stuff very well into sort of the overarching story going on in Lucha Underground, in my opinion, at least. Mm-hmm. We also get a backstage scene with Jeremiah Gray. He's working out in the gym, lifting some weights. Katrina shows up and sort of says it's a real shame that Ivelisse, what happened to her again is very sad. And Katrina, however, is surprised to see Jeremiah Gray in the flesh. Apparently, they used to date, and Jeremiah looks to still be in love with her, according to Katrina, and not Ivelisse. And she says this because he has a piece of some stone that she has, and I'm assuming it's the one that she uses on Meal, which that's a very interesting recall to the whole proceedings here. And she says that she's, of course, still in love with Mill and all this stuff, gives him the lick of death and disappears.
Yeah. Oh boy, love triangle.
Another one, yeah.
Yeah, here we go again. But the piece of the stone being in his possession, this is something that I think needs to be done in a way because you need to have some more intrigue. You need to have something extra to this because I don't know. The storyline before was fine and it worked, but I just think that they need more to it. And this is good. I mean, this is something I didn't see coming.
I completely agree with you. It certainly gives Jeremiah Gray a lot of clout and importance to the overall arc going on in Lucha Underground, of course, especially between Ivelisse and Katrina, obviously. So I'm all for this. And then the last little bit here, we go backstage again somewhere in the temple, wherever Dario keeps Matanza. He's punching the wall, and when Dario shows up, he says, "Hey, man, you got a match with Johnny Mundo for the title next week," and Matanza loudly tells him no, which scares the bejesus out of Dario. So Dario asks him what he wants, and Matanza just replies, "Mysterio," very loudly. And the camera sort of pans back to something that Dario sees on the back wall, and apparently Matanza has punched his fist bloody and has used the blood to paint a very large question mark. That's straight out of something. I thought that was awesome.
That was very, very cool. And I don't know what it's from, but at the end of the day, you gotta love that psychological feeling you get out of it because it's creepy. It's very serial killer-ish. It's it's something that adds that intrigue, and you think of Rey Mysterio, you better watch out because he's out for blood. This is not just a I'm going to knock you down. This is I'm going to kill you type of thing. So I appreciate that. I thought it was very cool.
That match, it should be something great. I love Matanza, and when you say kill, that very much could happen because we've seen Matanza kill people. So
yeah, exactly.
Let's actually finally start diving into this this gauntlet match. First up, Pentagon Dark takes on Doku, who is Kairi Hojo, and this part of the match is more focused on Kairi is great at selling. That's one of the reasons why her and Io work so well together. Is Io's this big badass, and she's the one that sells the offense so well. And you certainly get a great picture of that, as well as what else she's about. And she's really good at chops and kicks and all this other stuff. But she gets some high-flying moves in here, too. Certainly she looks the least impressive, but that is by design, as Pentagon pretty much floors her by catching her elbow drop attempt and then turning it into his little move where he breaks her arm. And that, of course, stops the match, and he beats her that way. So what did you think of this first part here, Gary?
This was fine. I expected this to happen just because of the fact, this is not only a gauntlet match, but also being the first competitor, I thought, this was going to spell danger for her. So, it's kind of worked out the way I felt like it was going to. I really wasn't surprised.
Yeah, and I was expecting a bit more from her, but they certainly saved it and worked in a longer form story here with the whole thing. Next up, Pentagon Dark faces Yuri, who is Maya Iwatani. Iwatani is a lot more versed in the lucha game, and that's very apparent from the onset. She gets the nice the wheelbarrow hip toss, and she gets the big dives and everything else, and really sort of keeps Pentagon off balance for most of the match. Until Pentagon finally has enough of her games and starts dealing with her. He catches her out of a somersault senton attempt right into the package pile driver, which is just absolutely brutal. And then he breaks her arm too, and that sends Yuri going away. Thoughts, Gary?
I'm sorry.
No, you're
I
good.
had something. My mic was on mute. No, this was kind of cool too. This was a little bit better than of course the first one. I really appreciated that they had a lot more offense for her going into this. But it's once again, this kind of feeds into the story of Pentagon and how he's he's going to be taking damage throughout this. But at the end of the day, it's all about him and what he's willing to dish out, and when he's deciding to stop playing games, kind of like you alluded to. So I once again, I appreciated the way they kind of handled this. It wasn't all about him dominating. There were times when he didn't look so great.
Absolutely. And they sort of tie it all up here in the last part where he faces off Hitokiri or Io Shirai, who may be the very best women's wrestler in the world, and certainly in the top 10 of just pro wrestlers in the world right now. She and Pentagon have this absolutely incredible brawl all around the temple. She surprises him first off with the big drop kick, and then she gets all the crazy dives. And she looks like one tough badass against Pentagon, which is not something easily done. Pentagon, of course, gets all his stuff in. Even Death Valley drivers are out on the floor after he peels up the mats, which is just absolutely brutal. Shirai gets to be the first woman in Lucha Underground to dive off of Dario's office, which is absolutely awesome. And she ends up putting him away, too, with the Standing Destroyer. I could not get enough of it. I could have watched him go all night.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's the progression. Mm-hmm. It's about the fact that round one, a little bit easy for him. Round two, a little bit more difficult, but he's able to pull it out. But round three, it's just too much for him to handle, and it's because not only is he tired, but there's so much going on in this match. And at the end of the day, it took a lot from her to get over and to get this victory, but she did it and she pulled it off. And I thought that was kind of cool. I'm kind of weirded out by it in a way, just because of Pentagon Dark. But at the end of the day, it has some sense to it.
Yeah, Larry wasn't a large fan of this booking choice either, because he feels like Pentagon Dark is on the verge of superstardom almost. He's the top guy here in Lucha Underground by a mile as far as reactions and all that goes. Everywhere he goes on the independent circuit around the country here in the U.S., he sells out shows and he's winning titles and really becoming a big name. And Larry, I mean, there's the opinion, and this is mine, that you have to make the Black Lotus triad here look strong, and they're not chopped meat either. These are three very talented women who deserve a serious shot here in the States too. And I don't know. I mean, I think this because Pentagon still looks triple tough in all this. Like we haven't gotten to the last little bit here, which we'll get to, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the choice here of having them go over.
Yeah. See, and I think I'm more on the side of Larry as well. That's why it weirded me out because, Pentagon Dark, he's so much more. And even just as Pentagon, he was kind of a creepy guy, kind of a loose cannon. But Pentagon Dark is so much evil, so much aggressiveness. So much of him is about, just, I don't want to say mindlessly, but in a way mindlessly dominating people. And putting them in a place of pain and torture, and that's what he kind of gets energy from. And now you're at this point where he goes in a gauntlet and does pretty well for himself, but at the end of the day, does lose to someone that I don't want to put gender rules into this, but in a way you kind of feel like, man, this guy just got beat by a female wrestler who's really talented, but I expect so much more out of this character that is so dark and that dominated a legend like Vampiro.
Mm-hmm. I think that's absolutely fair too. I know obviously intergender wrestling isn't for everybody, and I'm curious if maybe the decision of them maybe going so half-heartedly on intergender wrestling in the first season and somewhat in the second season sort of hurt reactions for. I mean obviously Sexy Star winning the championship in Aztec Warfare was this huge moment for Lucha Underground, and the live crowd was totally into it. And I'm assuming and thinking that that Lucha Underground's line of logic went that since Sexy's done that the door has sort of been thrown open, that you can do stuff like this. And I absolutely think there's some validity to that line of logic. But I don't know. I mean, Lucha Underground, I think it's just so niche already. I don't know if making it nicher like this is the right move. I didn't know if you had anything to add.
No, you had some great points there, and no, I agree. I mean, it's the atmosphere, it's everything in there. So I think you pretty much said it, though. I kind of agree with you.
So to finish this off, Black Lotus herself comes down. She attacks the referee, so her part of the match never starts, and she breaks Pentagon's arm. And then Dragon Azteca Jr. comes out, who also had his arm broken by Pentagon back at Ultima Lucha Dos, and has had this big thing with Black Lotus. So they have this big stare down. Lotus and the Triad leave, and then he breaks Pentagon's other arm. So it doesn't look like we'll be seeing Pentagon for a while at least, which is... I know a lot of people probably aren't going to be in favor of this line of thinking, but I think it's great. There's so many other stories in Lucha Underground that need some breathing room. And Pentagon... I think is pretty much almost a made man. He's not quite there yet, obviously, but he's certainly their top guy. And letting these other people and other stories have a chance to breathe, I think, is the right move here.
It is, and there's got to be a point, I guess, where Pentagon has to, kind of pay, he had already had, Vampiro said earlier that sometimes you're going to have to pay the piper sometime, right? Mm-hmm. And it looks like Pentagon did. But, once again, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but it just still feels so weird to me and so odd because I just kind of see him as a supernatural force that can overcome almost anything. And to see him so vulnerable and to see him go through this and not be that monster that I know, it kind of just trips me out. I just don't feel like he's the same person. It doesn't mean that, down the line he's not going to be bigger, better, stronger. He very well be. But it's just at this moment you're just kind of, do I like that or do I not like that? But I think at the end of the day, you're right. There are so many other stories to get into when it comes to Lucha Underground. I think in a few weeks, I will forget about Pentagon. Just for at least a short time.
Yeah, his face was on the poster for season 3. I have to think something big is going to come for him this season. We just haven't gotten there yet. But that's Lucha Underground for the last 2 weeks. I think we might have gone a little longer than we wanted to, but I think it was still a very profitable discussion.
Oh, very much so. And yeah, Lucha Underground is one of those promotions that you can't just this match, because it's all story based. It's all got a path that it's leading us down, and you, like I said, you can't just this match happened, because there's so much more into it. And not like when we talk TNA, we're going to shortchange anything. But to be honest with you, in TNA, you can kind of go match to match and talk about some of the same things, but in about 3 minutes and get what you need out of it. So, but we are about to do that. We are about to get into some TNA Impact Wrestling, and so we want you guys to know that we do also have some other stuff on the show. Don't forget, after that, we are crowning Superstar of the Week, and plus we're also talking Tag League. So, but right now it's time to talk Impact. We'll do it now.
TNA Impact Wrestling.
All right, guys, go ahead.
All right. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so 2 weeks here of Impact that we're going to briefly touch on this last week. There was a X Division elimination match between, doing the six-man thing still, which DJZ, Mandrews, and Braxton Sutter win. Is a fine match. It's still, of course, not a lot going on in the X Division, unfortunately. EC3 beats Eli Drake by submission, so he still keeps his number one contendership. Al Snow and Mahabali Shera beat the Tribunal. Nobody cared. They had that turkey soup match, which is a long-standing TNA tradition where the loser, of course, has to parade around in a turkey suit, which Grado lost. I don't know if you really want to talk a whole bunch about that. And then Brand beats Brother Nero in a no DQ match to keep the DCC and Hardy's thing going. But the absolute best thing, the two best things on this show, Brother Nero and the Hardys doing the ice cream social thing, which I just absolutely adored.
Yes.
And the big Thanksgiving dinner thing with Allie and Maria and all the mean girls and everything.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And, man, we have the same wavelength here. So not that, the rest of the stuff that happened on the show is just terrible, but, it wasn't the strongest episode when it came to, some of the matches and all that. But, yeah, let's go. I want to start with the Hardy thing. It was a blast to watch that. They had a great, situation here because you have so many different compact things in one episode when it comes to Broken Matt Hardy. I love the fact that they have a hypnotist who basically brings him back to his broken self and then brings him right back out with a snap of his fingers. I thought that was hilarious. I love the referee kind of going down, his list of accomplishments and, basically saying, hey, you beat EC3, and we actually use it in our Monday show, a clip of that. So it's just overall, it was great to see, the silliness, the fun and goofy stuff, and see Revy's finally, she's just sick of it. And at the end of the day, as he jokes around, Broken Matt Hardy, struck by lightning and all that, and brought back to his broken self. It's so funny. It's great. I love the fact that he kept saying 9 deities, and like, no, it's 7. So I don't know, Paul. I mean, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. It wasn't too much and too little.
I thought it was just the perfect amount of stuff too. The stuff like him getting struck by lightning might have been the only way you could have figured out for him to be broken. And it's still great. And I think the journey just getting back here, like, no, we don't want it to go away, and then it doesn't go away at the end. Of course, it's just awesome. Just wanting to make peach cobbler and be a guy. I had a lot of fun with that. So
yeah, and I love Vanguard 1 telling Senior Benjamin he's in trouble when Broken Matt Hardy remembers everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because Senior Benjamin's been on an easy streak, just sitting back and enjoying himself while all this is taking place. So that's what's going to be fun to see if they ever address that. And Vanguard 1 tells him, or it all comes to into play somewhere down the road. And the other part of this, Allie, and this whole thing with the whole dinner, and she's supposed to be the servant and all that. It's a little cheesy, but I think it does work in favor because that's what Allie is at this moment. Her character is very cheesy, very underdogish, and she's kind of like the mousy type, and she's got a crush on this guy, and these mean girls are making her suffer. And at the end of the day, by accident, she kind of gets a little bit of revenge by putting a pumpkin pie in Maria's face on accident when she was trying to get someone else. So I think overall that was kind of funny and kind of cool. And I love Braxton Miller's reaction as he sits there kind of dumbfounded, like, what's going on here?
My favorite part, of course, is Allie calling Maria and everybody at the table a meanie. Like, there's no greater disservice that you can give to somebody.
Oh, that is so awesome. The innocence that's a part of this is so great. I think, they've got two characters on the show, and that's, I think, why we are talking about these two segments, because two characters, Broken Matt Hardy and Allie, they've got great stories. They're, just people that you get behind for your own reasons, and it's fun for me.
I completely agree with you. Let's go on and move into this week's stuff. We open up with the sort of build between Aaron Rex and Moose as Moose challenges for the Grand Championship. He answers the open challenge. Rex sort of tries to back out of everything. It doesn't work out, of course, because Moose just pretty much runs him over in about 2 minutes to win the championship. I think this is the right move. Aaron Rex has been a non-factor in TNA, and Moose is the one still with the rocket strapped to him to try to get in that main event scene. So I think this is good stuff. And whenever we get Drew Galloway back, certainly there's a ready-made feud already in the process.
Definitely, I agree. And you know what? It's kind of funny because, Moose needs to get some momentum going, and to me, this is a great way to do it. Aaron Rex and that whole thing with, I'm already blanking on his name. Sutter.
Is Jesse.
Jesse, yes, thank you. The whole thing between them was fine, but it was just, I don't know, a little cheesy for me. I just was not really digging it as much. It was okay. It was just not my favorite. But by this happening, not only does this allow Jesse to find a new opponent in Moose, but someone who will face off against him. And Moose is so dominant, it's more believable. With Aaron Rex, you kind of had to have the loaded punch for him to win. Mm-hmm. So not only does this accomplish maybe move Aaron Rex onto something else, but Moose needs a title. This gives him some relevance, and it'll be fun to see what happens from here.
Yeah, I mean, my only real thing that I'm nervous about here is Moose is fine at what he does. I don't know how well that's going to be molded around the idea behind the Grand Championships thing, with rounds and everything. That's the one thing I'm a little nervous about these title matches, is that they could be kind of bleh, especially if they go long.
You got a point. You really, really do, and that's the thing I'm a little bit concerned about as well, because this is not a technical wrestler you're talking about. This is not a guy that honestly has had a lot of experience so far in the wrestling business. So it's at least he gets a title, but I also don't expect him to hold it real long. If he does, it'll be a surprise. Not only that, I think that round system is kind of going to go out the window because I don't think it can really apply to Moose.
And that's completely fair. It was going to be a rough thing to try to get over, and I still don't know if they have really a lot of the people on the roster who can work that style well outside of the guys that you already had sort of around at the top of the tournament. Of course, outside Aaron Rex. So let's go and move on, though. The X Division title's on the line. As a result of that 6-man you talked about in that last show, Mandrews and Braxton Suter won a championship match. So apparently that's what the Team X Gold gimmick thing was that those 6-man titles were eventually going to end in whatever match, and the guys were going to win a title shot or whatever. Anyways, DJZ retains the championship. Mandrews sort of turns heel in all this, and goes on this big attack run on DJZ, and it's cool. certainly, at least it sets up a feud for the X Division. I don't know how well Mandrews is going to work as a heel. I've never seen him work heel before, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because I'll be honest with you, he has babyface written all over him.
Mm-hmm.
And turning, Mandrews into a heel is going to be, something that I think it could work. But on the other hand, I don't have a lot of confidence in it. Now, I do think that you definitely, need to, find a way to get DJZ to have some meaningful matches and find some great feuds. But right now, I don't know how excited I am about this whole situation. But, you still have DJZ with the championship, no matter, how he won it or why. But I just think that they've got to add a little bit more to this if they wanted to keep going. And, man, Mandrews as a heel is going to be really odd.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. So, we'll just have to see how that sort of pans out. Focusing on the tag team situation here, the Death Count Council give a promo here where they talk about what they're here to do, which is pretty much beat people up. Brother Nero shows up and says that there's going to be a title match tonight between the DCC and the Hardys, and that's when Broken Matt Hardy shows up, of course, and starts tossing people around, and it's great. And then we get to the match where the Hardys defend against DCC. This was very long. It's really rough because obviously you don't want to take away anything from what the Hardys are doing right now because they're your top act by a mile in TNA. And the Death Count Council are still so new that you don't want to really take the wings off them either. But the Hardys retain on Double Twist of Fate on Kingston. And the DCC sort of look like chumps here because they had the man advantage with the guy on the outside and they still couldn't really work out something better than a loss here.
The match is what it is. It was a little long, and you have their tag champs retained. But here's the thing: you just touched on it, Paul. That's why I want to focus on it. But the DCC, you first see the vignette, you still get a little creeped out thinking about it. Those masks are kind of creepy. The whole thought process behind them is kind of almost an homage to Mr. Robot in a way because they kind of remind me of that. But here we go. This is really, really making them look bad. Not only are they losing these matches, they're getting kind of punked out. It's way too early. You can't have this happen with a faction that you want to matter. And not only that, you're cheesing me out by in the promo in the ring having that little robotic voice. You don't do that. Mm-hmm. Because we already know what you look like with the mask off. Not only that, we know James Storm. We know who this guy is. Heck, the music to the DCC even has a country twang to it. So don't act like we're all idiots and we don't know who you are and the way you talk. You don't need a stupid machine if you've already revealed your face.
Right.
I don't know, Paul. I think it's corny. I think it's stupid. I just think they've already gone the wrong way with this, and I think they could have actually made the DCC to look good and actually been someone that I could have been behind, but right now I am not.
Yeah, they pushed them up against the top act in the company, who are still relatively fresh in their act, too. It hasn't even been around for a year yet. And the DCC are only here for a month. And I get it, you only have so many people on the roster you can feud with, and it's not like your tag division is the strongest thing in the world. And you really don't have another big face team outside the Hardys for these guys to contend with. But I felt like you could have had them run through something else before we got to this point. And obviously you needed something for the Hardys to do too. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't in this situation. And it's just somebody's going to lose bad, and it just, they can't be the Hardys, I think is what TNA is thinking. Is that's it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like if you wanted him to stick around and to mean something, you can't have this happen. But that's the bed they chose to lie in. So they can't be surprised if the DCC is nothing coming out of this.
Yeah, and obviously this is going to keep going for a while, I would think too. So we'll just see how well this all continues to roll along. T3 gets some time to talk about his match with Eli and sort of mocks him and everything because, of course, Eli isn't allowed to talk anymore. And Drake, he sort of puts EC3. God, how do I say this? Okay, EC3 sort of says, hey man, you're great and all this stuff, and if you want a title match, all you have to do is sort of say the word. Which EC3 is, of course, just cleverly little backhanding him, as my best friend does. And then he gets to call out the TNA champion, Eddie Edwards, later on, and they have a little stare down, a little promo off and everything. And I tell you what, EC3, it might just be the perfect heel to make Eddie Edwards the most interesting champion in TNA.
I sure hope it's that way, and I think he can. I think you're right. He's definitely the number one candidate. But, I am still kind of sad that Eli Drake is no longer talking. I think that kind of bummed me out, But, what we're getting out of Eddie Edwards is, there. I don't necessarily think he's a great, guy when it comes to charisma or anything like that. He's just not, that's not his makeup. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I get it. That's their champion. And, until they give it to somebody else who I kind of believe in, I'm just going to go with it. But, it's a situation where I think that, EC3 is going to have to carry, not the match itself, because, both are great workers, but I think, carry the heat between them on this feud, because I just don't think Eddie Edwards really does a great job of getting the heat for her.
I mean, he's never been the best promo, and he is trying so hard to get there and be that guy. So, I mean, there is, of course, a tip of the hat to give him there, but EC, if there's anybody he can learn from to be a better promo and to at least make him seem interesting, it's going to be EC3. He's still the best promo guy in the company, and definitely when he finally turns heel, which he teases some more here, saying he'll stab his friend in the back to win that championship back. Them's heel talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he'll slit someone's throat for that title.
Absolutely, which is a big deal, of course.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
We get a video package with Al Snow and Shera sort of talking about how they became friends. And then Snow cuts a promo talking about how it's going to set up a tag match between Snow and Shera and the Tribunal. Let's all get excited for that.
Yeah.
And then we get some Allie and Laurel Van Ness argue backstage, and then we get some highlights from the Thanksgiving show. And Maria calls out Laurel and talks about all these things that she's done for her, how she's been a role model for her, and all this other stuff. And she gets super pissed at the crowd for chanting for Allie, and Allie turns around and says, "You know what? I'm sorry for the pie thing," and pretty much just apologizes for everything. And Maria thinks Allie's just jealous of Laurel and all this other stuff, and sort of gets on to Braxton. And she's she's essentially going for blood. And Allie finally stands up for herself and slaps Maria right in the face. Laurel lays her out, and then her and Maria leave. So there's some good building going on here.
Yeah, I agree. And, this has been kind of fun to see, the story of Allie and see what direction they're going. And, this is the second time they're out, in a setting of, the boss and, something going awry and all that. So even though it's kind of the same situation in a way, it's still entertaining and very interesting, and I got to see where they're going to take this Allie. I don't know if they're going to, let it have a slow burn or if they're going to start speeding to hyper overdrive. But, if they're going to have her involved with Braxton Sutter, they probably will have to have, it's mixed in for a lengthy amount of time unless they are just going to jump into it face first.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see. I mean, they've been doing it right so far with Allie, I think. So whenever we finally do get to that part where she has the big turn and, she gets to really show, because Cherry Bomb is a fantastic wrestler. So I'm really looking forward to seeing when they start to let her loose and see what happens going forward from there.
Do you think,
go ahead.
Do you think they're going to have a, like I said, I'm concerned about the amount of time. Do you think that they are actually going to give it a realistic amount of time? Or do you think they're going to show like a Rocky vignette and then like in 2 episodes, Allie's ready to go?
I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised if they go the same way that they did with Abyss and what they did with with the Joseph Parker bit, where he sort of shows up at OVW, and a couple of video packages later, he's a great wrestler again.
Yeah, there you go.
But I mean, I think in the interest of time, and they might slow tease it out a little bit, like maybe it won't be overnight or anything, but certainly there's either got to be a face that steps in to teach her or something like this where they can sort of pair up. Because I think that with Sienna's been absent so far, and I don't know if that's because she's not with the company anymore or because she's doing other stuff or whatever, but there's an opportunity there to at least pair her up with a face who's been around. And obviously, I mean, Gail Kim's not that person anymore, which might have been what the plan was going to be. But there's got to be something else they can do here, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true.
Maybe the big heel she'll be facing is Rosemary, who challenges Jade for the now vacant Knockouts title in a cage match. Gail brings out the championship for to sort of present it as her officially dropping it. And then Rosemary and Jade proceed to have this incredible cage match. Jade jumps off the top of the cage. It's awesome. Jade goes up once again to finish it. She gets misted. Rosemary hits the red wedding, and that championship goes on somebody who's been very interesting this entire year, and that's Rosemary.
Yeah, I mean, it's glad to see her back in the mix here a little bit because they've kind of taken a break from her and kind of got her out of our, vision. So maybe we weren't talking about her, but I definitely think that, one of my favorites on this show, and I'm glad that she reached this pinnacle. I mean, to me, it is important. I know the character may be kind of odd placed on a champion, but then again, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen a lot of Rosemary wrestling, but of course, Courtney Rush is a tremendous wrestler in her own right too, and Jade is awesome. And you have a couple acts now that you can really build the division around, and maybe you bring in a couple more girls, and you might have yourself a reinvigorated Knockouts division, and now's as good a time as any to really start trying to build that with all the big talk and hubbub about women's wrestling trying to become a big thing.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's your TNA. Total Nonstop Deletions on December 15th. Don't forget, guys, that's going to be awesome. And, yeah,
some great stuff coming your way. Well, before we crown a Superstar of the Week and we do a Match of the Month and, of course, the Superstar of the Month, we have one other thing we want to get into before we do that, and that is talk some Tag League when it comes to New Japan. So we are about to hop into that. Sean and Paul are going to get into all that with you guys, and that'll be next.
King of Sport. New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Alright. So after we do this, I got a few things we might want to cover, and then we can get into closing the show. So I'll be honest, I haven't watched too much of the Tag League, but there have been results to go down. They do have a show that is going on right now, and then they'll take a break for a day and then to have 2 more shows. So here are the results up until yesterday, just in case you just have kind of been casually paying attention and need to know what is going on. So for the A block, you've got Tenkozy and Tamatanga and Tangaroa, of course, Girls of Destiny at 8 points. They've been going through their block so far. Naito and Rush have 6, along with War Machine, Mr. Breaker, and the not Harley Race's son, Leland Race. Yujiro and Hangman Page and Tanahashi and Juice Robinson all have 4 points, and Hanare and Nakanishi bringing up the rear with 0 so far. Anything stand out to you, or anything you're hoping changes here?
I think, Rush and Naito are only at 6. I picked them to win the block. They have a big win over War Machine, and I don't think they faced... I don't think they faced GOD. No, they faced GOD and everything yet. So they got Page and Takahashi and Leland Breaker and or Leland Race and Brian Breaker left. So I mean, I think they win those two, and maybe you have some step backs there from God and Tenkozy, and they end up winning the block. I think.
Yeah, that should be interesting if you do get the Naito and Rush. I mean, Tenkozy seems to be getting the Makabe run that he got in the G1, where I think they're going to start to falter at some point. Even though you don't have like too many actual, tag teams that you're totally depending on, Tenkozy is one of those that you would be. But it'd be interesting to see if they would keep Rush around for Wrestle Kingdom and have them win. I think I'd love to see War Machine win this, but they probably won't.
I had War Machine doing really well.
Yeah.
I had War Machine doing really well. I didn't have him win the block though.
Yeah, I mean it's hard when they're like it's the first time they're showing up. Very rarely do they have them win a block, let alone a tournament. So the fact that they're doing this well is good for them. It means somebody likes them. So we get the B block, which is kind of sort of going according to plan, somewhat. You got Tomohiro Ishii and Hiroki Goto at 8 points by themselves. Evil and Sonata at 6 points. Okada and Yoshihashi also at 6 points. Billy Gunn, Mr. Ass, and Yoshitatsu at 4 points. Shibata Nagata 4 points. Makabe and Hama 4 points. Omega and Owens 4 points. And Bad Luck Fale and Bone Soldier bringing up the rear at 0.
Yeah, no shocker there at 0. So Goto and Ishii and Okada and Yoshihashi apparently had this really, really good match on. I think it was night 7. I say hesitantly. It might have been more recent. I know that the match that they had was supposed to be great. I've heard nothing but wonderful things about that, so obviously go check that out. And then the Kenny Omega Chase Owens Bad Luck Fale Bone Soldier match was also supposed to be this great comedy match too, so I need to go check that out as well.
Yeah, I think was it Yujiro and Page and Tama Tonga and Tonga Roa just had their comedy match on the previous night, so. So it's always interesting to see how the factions go against each other. You have Chaos really going at it, and you got Bullet Club doing funny stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. No surprise there, really.
I think obviously Ishii and Goto are still on track to win B block and win the whole thing, but good that they're keeping things close there.
I completely agree with you. I mean, obviously, Okada and Yoshihashi aren't going to win this. I mean, Evil Sonata probably your dark horses out of all this, but Goto and Ishii against War Machine in a final would be dynamite if that is the way this ends up going. I think that there's a lot for Naito and Rush to sort of gain out of this, and I don't think they brought Rush in just to sort of have him lose the block and not make it to the final,
Certainly. So, anything else you want to say about the Tag League?
Obviously, it doesn't feel like we're paying a great deal of attention to it, but honestly, the Tag League is always just this sort of like filler period to working up towards the Dome, which of course is going to be ginormous, and then we'll cover that from A to Z because we've always had a great time talking about the show ever since we started doing it 2-3 years ago now. So
I'm even thinking about going back and looking at Wrestle Kingdoms of the past just to write about them, just to get all psyched up about it. So look out for that. W2Mnet.com.
Sure.
So a couple of things we should. Mustafa Ali and Arya Daivari have officially been signed, so they are officially not only a part of 205 Live, but they're part of the WWE crew going forward. Veda Scott has asked for her release and has gotten it, so she is free to do whatever. Don't know if that means she'll be doing the women's tournament, or if she could be looking for some kind of role with NXT, or just she's gonna do other things. Who knows? I mean, she is a lawyer in her spare time, so. Any thoughts on what you like to see or what you think we could see with Veda?
So I obviously a couple weeks ago, Wrestle Circus was here in Dallas, and both Ali and Veda Scott were on those shows. Ali got to cut a promo talking about how he was going somewhere he couldn't talk about, and obviously that's the 205 Live thing there. So no surprise that those two guys are signed. They're both great too, and Ali is a really special talent. I hope they do something with. Veda Scott is a little bit shocking. I think she was going to be one of the pillars that they built that Women of Honor division around. Obviously, with her gone, you have some other people going to step into that role now. But she really enjoyed her time in Japan. She worked Seedling, and she toured around there earlier this year. So I wouldn't be shocked if she maybe tries to sign with Stardom or something like that.
That'd be interesting, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've been having a lot of the Gaijin talent over there, so and doing sort of well.
Yeah, Shirai just defended the championship against Taya recently over there.
There you go. And I mean, we did see Tessa Blanchard on, I think it was Raw.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? I mean, that might go hand in hand with the whole them still trying to get Ricochet to come. So don't know if that means anything or that was a one time, but.
Yeah,
you know.
We'll see if we see Ricochet in the background of a bar scene as well, and we'll get more of that, that close knowledge. So, but yeah, I mean that's really cool. I mean, that was cool to see her involved at least, even if it's in that role. So, all right, is there any other news before we head on over to Superstar? Is that it?
I think. Okay, so let's just take a guess here at Kenny Omega says the deal is done. Bullet Club will announce a new member, a monster that devours all competition. Your nightmare will soon begin. Well, I was thinking it was a joke on Braun Strowman and his Devour sponsorship, but no, Ryback maybe.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what everybody on the internet's been saying. It certainly fits with the connotation of phrase there, but you never know with Bullet Club. It could be somebody we've never seen. What if they I don't know what Cody Hall's status is, but obviously he could just be coming back for all we know.
That's very true. Very true. So I don't know. I know Ryback would be the first person I could think of right off the top of my head, unless it's Bull Dempsey. So
could be Bull Dempsey,
which would be very weird, but yeah, could be.
Yeah, Bull Dempsey would be weird, but I mean, he does have a friend in Juice there, and maybe he can put in a good word.
They just brought in Billy Gunn too. I mean, the door is open for anybody.
That's right. That's right. So. All right, guys.
Billy Gunn's been doing okay, so
yeah.
The crowd likes him, which is what's funny. Like I was like, I didn't think
I got nothing for love, but with Billy Gunn, I think he's awesome. It's just, you bring in Billy Gunn, I think really you could bring in somebody from halfway across the world, and everybody's like, okay, let's see what he's got.
Oh, he's like the famouser. We love this guy.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on, guys. We have to crown a Superstar of the Week, so let's go ahead and jump into that next.
Superstar of the Week.
All right, here we go, guys. Let's start off with 1 point going to Moose.
Moose captures the Grand Championship in dominating fashion over there at TNA. Not his first title, but maybe the first title that you actually care about. I don't know. It depends on your feelings on TNA.
Or the Grand Championship, for that matter.
Or just everything about that.
Yeah, that's honest. That's really the truth. And we got 2 points going over to the New Day this week.
Well, New Day defended their titles against Gallus and Anderson, and they were continuing desperation trip before they inevitably break the demolition record. So, why not?
3 points will go to Rosemary.
Rosemary, of course, captures the Knockouts Championship in a big cage match with Jade. It's a really good match. I'd recommend it to anybody, too. If you're into both girls, or if you're into women's wrestling, or what have you, it's worth a watch. And hats off to Rosemary.
And we got 4 points going over to Rich Swann.
Well, he had a freaking great match with Brian Kendrick on 205 Live's inaugural episode for him to win the Cruiserweight Championship from Kendrick. I mean, the night couldn't be sweeter for the man, unless he just went all night long.
I get it.
Yeah. Makes me also think Lionel Richie. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway. Well, we got 5 points, and our superstar of the week this week will be DIY. That's right. Gargano and Ciampa get our superstar of the week this week.
They're superstar of the month, Gary. Superstar of the week, I thought was Sasha Banks.
It is Sasha Banks. I am sorry. Look how bad I mess up. I'm looking at my notes here. I got it far ahead of my notes, guys. So you've already announced it. I don't know what I was thinking. I was trying to go too fast. See what happens when you're trying to go too fast? Anyway, yes, Sasha Banks. Thank you, Paul. You saved our lives this week because you figured that out. Anyway, Sasha Banks, I guess, I think all of us kind of agreed on this. She definitely deserves it.
Absolutely. She captured the Women's Championship for the third time now on Raw. Dynamite Falls Count Anywhere match. It was really, really awesome. Again, another great women's match this week, and couldn't happen to a better person, honestly. Sasha's awesome.
Much truth. And of course, I think DIY won Superstar of the Week last week, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to go back to episode 222. That's not the way it works. That we have to move ahead. Sasha Banks is our superstar of this week, but Superstar of the Month does go to DIY. And Sean, I mean, they've proven to have a pretty good month.
Yeah, DIY. I mean, this was a really rough month as far as getting the point totals in there, but their match was tremendous at NXT TakeOver Toronto, and they got the 5 points from us, and that helps with the double that they're pulling here.
Yeah, I mean, it was a logjam pretty much to try to figure out who won the month, just because it was so varied with so much big stuff happening in November, that we had to have sort of a long talk about who's going to win Superstar of the Month. And hats off to DIY for doing an extra 5 points for them in the point totals here for our Superstar of the Week count.
Yeah, for sure. And, Shibata has to get an honorable mention because he almost did win Superstar of the Month. So credits due there for him. And, of course, we have to do Match of the Month. And for this month, we chose a match at a TakeOver Toronto between the Revival and DIY. And they are the victors for Match of the Month. And, Paul, I mean, wow, that was a great 2 out of 3 falls match. And I think that's kind of why we chose it.
Yeah, this is the fifth match I've given 5 stars to this year. If that tells you anything about how great wrestling has been. But these guys, they went out there, they had an incredible match in that best 2 out of 3 falls match, and they somehow topped their last offering back in August at Brooklyn, and just an absolutely stellar barn burner of a match. There's not enough adjectives to use.
Mm-hmm. Definitely so. So, I mean, it was an excellent match, and definitely one deserved. Well, we are going to conclude the show. That is all for us this week. Just to want everybody to know, please remember to go check us out at W2Mnet.com. Lots of great written content. Of course, you can get this podcast there. And another place you can get this podcast is on the W2M Network. You can go find us on any device you use, any software that you use to download podcasts. You can find us at that place, W2M Network. That's right. To go find us there, subscribe, and you will have all our episodes, plus more great shows from not just us, but from other great people who have great wrestling shows and sports and various things that we like to have on our network. So, Sean, anything last? Any last words? Anything you want to tell the people about what's going on?
Yeah, just continue to check out the website. We have game reviews that keep going up daily. We had a Watch Dogs 2 review go up there, so if you're still undecided on you want to make that a Christmas gift for somebody, go read Mark's review there for that. And we'll have a Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remaster review here in at least a day. Total Divas continues to be reviewed by Mr. Jeremy Lambert in a awesome and yet hilarious way. So, if you've been checking out Total Divas and or just been wanting to know what's been going on this season and you don't necessarily check it out, definitely a article you need to read. And of course, we'll be having our roundtable probably around Saturday there for you guys to read and then check out our predictions and thoughts. I mean, it won't have ours. You still need to listen to the podcast because none of the three of us are going to be on that roundtable. It's the first time that we have such a good staff that they can do it without us being on. I still put it together, but these guys do a terrific job, and I always want to say thank you to them for making our small little website that's still growing something worthwhile to go to every day and see the content that's coming there. So again, definitely keep checking that out, and of course the W2M Network keeps having terrific shows every week that you should check out. I think all the shows had an episode except for the video game show, which we're behind on, but gotta find a day to record this thing. It's been too many weeks passed by, and so many games we gotta talk about, not to mention all the news. So we need to get to it. But sure, that's it, I think.
Awesome. Well, like I said, go check all that stuff out, and you won't regret it. Trust me. A lot of valuable information on those shows, and entertaining as heck, if you ask me personally. Besides that, once again, for myself, for Sean, and for Paul, I just want you guys to always remember, if you're not living life to the max,
not living life at all.
You know it.
Please.
Later.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.